I left my hometown family garage to follow her big city dreams. She chose a broke, spineless guitarist, texting promises he couldn't even keep. Before watching the video, please tell us in the comments, which country are you watching from? My name is Noah Whitaker, and I'm 29 years old. For years, I believed loyalty was love, and honesty was enough. But sometimes, the person you trust most teaches you the darkest lesson of your life. Every morning started the same. Coffee brewing, sunlight cutting through thin curtains, and Alyssa humming while scrolling her phone. She'd smile at me between sips, pretending to listen as I talked about work. I thought that quiet meant peace, but now I know it was distance in disguise. We had built our lives on routine. I fixed cars at a small local garage. She worked remotely in marketing. Our schedules never clashed. Maybe that's why I missed the signs, the secret messages, the late-night phone glow, the way she started guarding her screen like it was made of glass. At first, I thought I was paranoid. Everyone says trust is the foundation of love, and I didn't want to be the jealous boyfriend. So, I ignored the tension, even when her laughter came at strange hours. I'd roll over in bed and tell myself she was just chatting with friends. It's amazing how much a man will overlook when he loves too much. Sometimes, I'd find her lost in thought, smiling at nothing. I'd ask, "What's funny?" And she'd shrug, saying, "Just a meme." But her phone would always flip face down right after. Those little details, they started to build a quiet ache in my chest. One Sunday, I suggested we take a short trip, just the two of us. She declined, saying she had too much work. Instead, she spent the whole day on calls, pacing the apartment like she was hiding something. That night, when she fell asleep, I sat beside her, watching her chest rise and fall. I wanted to believe she was still mine, but my gut whispered otherwise. I kept convincing myself that things were fine, that people go through phases, that she'd find her way back to me. But even in the stillness of our mornings, something felt wrong. Her laughter wasn't for me anymore. Her warmth had turned mechanical, and her love, though familiar, no longer felt safe. The silence in our home wasn't peaceful anymore. It was loaded, like a ticking clock counting down to an explosion I couldn't yet see. It started with a sound, a small, sharp notification chime that changed everything. One night, while we were watching a movie, her phone buzzed twice. She smiled softly, turned the screen away, and typed something fast. I asked who it was, half joking. She said, "Just work," without looking up. That sound began haunting me. Every buzz pulled my attention like a reflex. I'd glance at her, pretending to stay calm, while inside, questions screamed louder each time. Who was messaging her so late? Why did her smile fade when I asked? Why did she suddenly need new passwords for everything? Her phone never left her side now. She even took it into the shower, claiming she was listening to music. Before bed, she'd scroll endlessly, locking her screen the moment I shifted beside her. Trust, once solid, was turning fragile, cracking beneath the weight of suspicion I didn't want to admit. My best friend Marcus noticed my distraction at work. One afternoon, he asked, "Everything good with you and Alyssa?" I forced a laugh. "Yeah, just busy." But Marcus wasn't fooled. He'd seen the way my mind drifted while tightening bolts or checking engines. He sighed and said, "Just keep your eyes open, man. Sometimes silence means danger." That line stuck with me. Silence means danger. A few nights later, she claimed she was heading to the gym. She'd started going at odd hours lately, late evenings when most people were winding down. I offered to drop her off once, but she refused too quickly. "No, it's fine," she said. "You always overwork. Rest tonight." When she returned, she wasn't sweaty. Her perfume was fresh, her hair neat. She said she met friends for smoothies afterward. I smiled back, but my chest felt heavy. I wanted to believe her, but the timeline didn't make sense. Lies never do. They sound too polished, too fast. I told myself I needed proof, not assumption. Still, that constant sound, those little echoes of notifications, kept breaking my focus. I started memorizing patterns. 2 quick tones at midnight, a longer one at 2 a.m., silence during the day. Whoever it was, they were careful, not careful enough. Every time her phone lit up, I caught her reflection in the glass window. A faint smile, the kind you give someone new, someone exciting. That was the moment I knew. Love doesn't fade quietly. It fades in vibrations, in late-night laughter meant for someone else. And though I said nothing, my heart began preparing for war. The truth didn't crash into me. It arrived quietly, wrapped in light. That morning, Alyssa rushed to work early, forgetting her tablet on the kitchen counter. She used it mostly for her marketing job, but something inside me told me to check. My hand trembled as I tapped the screen, half praying it was locked. It wasn't. Her email app was open, syncing messages between her phone and tablet. Then I saw it, a thread titled, "Last night." My stomach clenched, and my breath caught halfway. I opened it. Each message sliced deeper than the last. Flirty jokes, secret plans, and cheap compliments filled the screen. Every sentence smelled like betrayal. His name was Brent Cole, a local guitarist she once called just a friend. He wasn't stable, barely worked, and lived off borrowed money. Yet, there he was, texting her like she was his world, promising songs, kisses, and weekends away. And she replied with hearts, with "miss you," with "he doesn't suspect a thing." I sat there frozen, my pulse hammering in my ears. I wanted to break the tablet in half, scream, do something. But instead, I did the opposite. I saved everything. I took screenshots, copied messages, and emailed them to myself. Each click wasn't anger, it was control. Because when truth shows its face, emotion becomes a weapon you can't afford to waste. I stared at the words, reading them over and over. "You're my escape," she'd written. Escape from what? From me? The man who left everything to support her dreams? The man who paid her rent when her job fell through? My chest burned, but my tears refused to fall. Later that day, she texted me like nothing happened. "Hey babe, I'll be late tonight. Big project." I typed back calmly. "Okay, don't work too hard." I even added a smiley face, because I had learned something new that day. Patience was stronger than rage. That night, she came home humming. She kissed me on the cheek and said she missed me. I smiled back, holding her close, memorizing her scent, the same scent she carried to another man. I told her I loved her, and she said it back easily, effortlessly, like the word had lost its meaning. When she fell asleep, I sat by the window, phone in hand, staring at the screenshots. The truth was heavy, but it was mine now. I didn't know how or when, but I'd make sure she'd face what she'd done, not in anger, but in clarity. I wasn't going to shout, I was going to show. Because some betrayals don't deserve loud endings. They deserve exposure so silent, it echoes forever. What would you do if someone you loved betrayed you like that? Comment below. The next morning, I woke up beside her, pretending nothing had changed. My heart was quiet, but my mind was wide awake. Every move she made, every excuse she spoke, I noticed it all. I had no plan yet, just patience, and that patience felt powerful. She smiled at me over breakfast, her voice sweet, her lies smoother. "You've been quiet lately," she said, sipping her coffee. I forced a small grin. "Just tired," I replied. Inside, I was anything but tired. I was waiting for her next move, her next message, her next lie. That night, she told me about a girls' trip next weekend. Her voice carried excitement, not guilt. She said they were planning to relax by the beach, unwind, and reconnect. I nodded, pretending to believe her, though I already knew the truth. She wasn't planning a trip with her friends. She was meeting him, Brent. After she left for work, I started gathering quiet proof, phone bills, message times, receipts she thought she'd hidden. Everything connected. Every late meeting matched perfectly with the moments her messages lit up with his name. She thought she was clever, but clever people forget one thing. Patterns always leave trails. At night, I began testing her lies. I'd casually ask, "Who all is, going on the trip?" She'd name friends I'd never heard of, women who didn't exist. I played along, nodding with fake interest, encouraging her to relax. She grew more careless the more I pretended to trust her, and that was exactly what I wanted. One evening, she got a call and stepped outside to take it. Through the window, I watched her, pacing, smiling, whispering softly. When she hung up, I asked, "Who was that?" She replied without hesitation, "My boss." I smiled and said, "You should ask for a raise. You've been working so hard." She laughed, relieved. My calmness made her bold. That's when I knew I had her, not caught, but convinced she was safe. That false safety was my greatest weapon. Because when a liar thinks you're blind, they start digging their own grave. Over the next few days, I acted better than ever. I cooked dinner, surprised her with flowers, even packed snacks for her trip. She kissed me, thanking me for being understanding. She didn't see the quiet storm behind my eyes. I was done chasing honesty. I was done begging for love. Now, I was setting the stage, not for revenge, but for truth. Because the best way to expose a liar isn't by shouting, it's by letting them perform until the curtain finally falls. And when it did, everyone would be watching. The week of her girls' trip arrived, and I played my part perfectly. Alyssa buzzed with excitement, packing dresses and makeup, humming to herself while checking her phone. Every lie she told made her feel lighter, while every smile I gave made her dig deeper into deception. I wasn't just watching anymore. I was preparing. 2 days before her trip, she mentioned wanting to host a small apartment party. Just a few friends, she said, to celebrate my promotion. I agreed instantly. That's a great idea, I said, already planning my next move. She thought she'd have one last night of pretending before running to Brent. I was going to make sure that night ended very differently. I quietly invited a few of my own friends, people who knew both of us, Marcus, Denise from my job, and her old college roommate, Lila. Lila had always been blunt, never afraid of truth, and I wanted that energy in the room. Alyssa didn't question my list. She was too distracted choosing outfits and songs. I printed everything, the screenshots, the hotel receipts, and the messages. I slid them into a small folder labeled Memories. It almost made me laugh. I wasn't sure which version of myself would speak that night, the heartbroken man or the one finally free. The night arrived. The living room was glowing with string lights, soft music, and laughter. Alyssa looked stunning in a red dress, the same one she wore on our anniversary. Maybe she thought wearing it would hide her guilt. She floated around, greeting everyone, holding her wine like she owned the night. But I watched her eyes, always checking. Her phone, waiting for someone who wasn't me. Brent hadn't shown up, but I knew he was nearby. Alyssa had asked him to meet her after the party. I made sure he'd have something to hear before that happened. When the drinks were poured and laughter filled the room, I raised my glass. I just want to say something, I began, my voice calm, almost kind. We've had some good years together, and I think honesty deserves to be celebrated. The room grew quiet, expecting something sweet, maybe a toast to love. I smiled, reached for the folder and said, "So tonight, I want to share a few memories, ones that changed everything." Alyssa's face stiffened for the first time. She tried to laugh it off, but her hand trembled. She knew. Her body knew. She just didn't know how much I had seen. The air thickened. The stage was set. The truth was seconds away from turning her world upside down. I looked around the room one last time, then at her. "Let's begin," I said quietly. The real show was about to start. The room fell silent as I opened the folder. Alyssa's smile vanished completely. She shifted in her seat, trying to laugh, but the tremor in her voice gave her away. "Noah, what are you doing?" she asked. I looked up slowly and said, "Reading the truth." I pulled out the first page, a printed message thread, one of hundreds I'd found. My voice was calm, almost gentle. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again, my love." Gasps rippled through the room. Alyssa's hand shot forward, but I stepped back. "No," I said. "You've interrupted me enough in real life. Let me finish this." Everyone froze. Her co-workers, my friends, even Lila, all watching a scene they couldn't have imagined 5 minutes ago. I continued, reading line by line. "He doesn't suspect a thing. You're my real piece." The words stung, but not like before. They didn't hurt anymore. They burned clean, like truth purging poison from my chest. Alyssa tried to stand. "This is private," she shouted. I nodded. "It was, until you made our love public property through lies." My tone stayed even. I wasn't shouting for revenge. I was speaking for closure. Each sentence I read wasn't just exposure, it was release. I could see her trembling, her perfect image, her practiced charm, all crumbling under the weight of her own words. Denise glanced at her, disgusted. Marcus looked down, shaking his head. The silence between every message I read felt heavier than the words themselves. I reached the part where Brent begged her for money. "I'll pay you back once I start my music gig," it read. The crowd murmured, realizing she'd been supporting a man who couldn't even stand on his own. Alyssa covered her face, whispering, "Please stop." But I didn't. Not yet. "This was the man you chose," I said softly. "The one you risked everything for. Was he worth it?" Tears filled her eyes, but mine were dry. I was done crying for her. My heart had gone silent weeks ago, replaced by a steady rhythm of clarity. Finally, I placed the pages down on the table. "You always said you wanted honesty," I told her. "Now everyone has it." The room stayed frozen, thick with shock and pity. She looked around, searching for sympathy, but found none. Everyone saw her now, not the charming, loyal girlfriend, but the performer whose script had finally fallen apart. I walked toward the door, pausing for one last glance. "Truth doesn't need to shout, Alyssa," I said quietly. "It just needs to be read aloud." And with that, I left her to face the silence she'd created. If you were in my place, would you forgive or walk away? Tell me in comments. The next morning, the apartment was a graveyard of silence. The wine glasses were still half full, the lights still dim. I sat alone on the couch, replaying the night over and over. Alyssa had locked herself in the bedroom, crying for hours after everyone left, but I didn't move. The man I used to be, the one who begged for love, was gone. When she finally emerged, her face was swollen, her mascara streaked down her cheeks. "Noah, please," she whispered. "We can fix this." Her voice cracked like glass. I looked at her, calm, empty. "Fix what?" I asked. "You can't repair something you chose to destroy." She tried again, reaching for my arm. "It didn't mean anything," she said. "It was a mistake." That word again. Mistake. I let out a quiet laugh. "A mistake happens once, Alyssa. This was a decision, made again and again, every time you answered his messages." She dropped to her knees, crying harder. But I couldn't feel sympathy anymore. When trust dies, pity dies with it. I walked past her and began collecting my things. She asked where I was going. "Somewhere honest," I said. "Marcus showed up that evening. He didn't say much, just handed me a spare key to his place. 'Stay as long as you need,' he said." I nodded. He didn't need to hear details. The whole city probably knew by now. Secrets don't stay buried once they've been read aloud. Over the next few days, I packed quietly. No shouting, no revenge speeches, just closure. I canceled our shared accounts, redirected my mail, and moved my savings into my own name. Every click felt like reclaiming another piece of myself she'd taken for granted. She tried again, texting late at night. "I miss you," she wrote. "I'll change." I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it. Change doesn't come from regret. It comes from truth. And she'd never faced hers. Not really. The first week away was strange. The bed felt too big. The silence too loud. But slowly, that quiet became peaceful. I started running every morning, feeling my lungs fill again. I began eating better, working harder, living without waiting for apologies that would never mean anything. I realized that revenge wasn't the reading or the humiliation. It was this: walking away stronger, calmer, and untouchable, letting her drown in her own guilt while I learned to breathe again. Love had once been my fire. Now, self-respect was my light. Months passed, and life slowly rebuilt itself around me. I moved into a smaller apartment near the harbor, quiet and sunlit, far from the chaos she left behind. Every morning felt cleaner, lighter. There were no hidden messages, no forced smiles, no alarms of betrayal buzzing at midnight. Just peace, honest, earned peace. Work became my therapy. I fixed cars, saved money, and started planning for a new garage of my own. People around me said I looked different, calmer, focused. Maybe heartbreak burns away everything unnecessary, leaving behind the version of you that should have existed all along. Alyssa tried reaching out a few more times. Her tone changed every message, from anger to guilt to nostalgia. "I've been thinking about us," one said. "I still love you," said another. But I never replied. I didn't need to. She had already taught me everything I needed to know about love. That loyalty without respect is slavery, and forgiveness without change is foolishness. One evening, I saw her again, by accident. She was sitting at a coffee shop downtown, hair shorter, eyes tired. When she looked up and saw me, her expression froze between guilt and longing. I gave her a polite nod. She smiled weakly, maybe hoping I'd stop to talk. But I didn't. Some stories don't deserve a sequel. Walking away, I realized the power wasn't in exposing her. It was in outgrowing her. Revenge doesn't always mean destruction. Sometimes, it means becoming someone they'll never reach again. The silence that once hurt me now protected me. A week later, I finally deleted her number. Not out of anger, but closure. The chapter was finished. The man who once doubted himself now stood firm, unshaken. The same heart that once broke for love now beat for peace. I often think about that night. The night I read her messages aloud. It wasn't rage that drove me. It was truth. Truth that refused to die quietly. And that truth set me free. If I ever love again, it won't be with blind devotion. It will be with eyes open, heart steady, and boundaries unbreakable. Because sometimes, the best revenge is simply surviving what was meant to destroy you and thriving beyond it. So I move forward now, not bitter, not broken, but reborn. This is how my girlfriend betrayed me. Should I forgive or move on? Tell me in comments. If this story made you feel something, hit like, share it with a friend, and subscribe, because every broken heart deserves a new beginning.